Hi, I'm Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Virgo for July 2018. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my new moon and full moon blogs to help you maximize those transits every month, as well as a very extensive astrology blog and some other things there. Also, if you would love to learn astrology, then definitely check out my astrology apprenticeship program. There may be some slots available still. So you can see that at anniehelpsyou.com. We've got a crazy busy month astrologically in July. We've got 2 eclipses. Mars is still retrograde, and it's really just getting into its deep retrograde because it started at the end of June, even though the shadow period started in May. We have Mercury retrograde. We have Jupiter waking up, which is very exciting. We've got Uranus in a different sign, and that has some very specific implications for Virgo placements. So we're going to talk about all of this now. We've got a lot to cover. So I'm calling the theme of this month for Virgos creative bliss, although as you'll see, you have a lot of different areas accentuated in your chart, too much to summarize in a couple of words. The reason why I'm calling the energy creative bliss is because this 5th house is being accentuated for these eclipses. So we're in the midst of an eclipse cycle that started at the beginning of 2017, runs into 2019. Every time we've got eclipses within that time, it's activating momentum along a path that is a story that's going on for these years, okay? So an event like an eclipse is a one-time astronomical event, but the effects astrologically stretch out much further and wider than that day. So if you want to see how the first eclipse of this cycle, which is July 12th, it's a 20-degree of Cancer eclipse, a partial solar one, is going to affect Virgos, then check out my June report, because I'm covering one of each of the 3 eclipses in my June, July, and August report so that we can have time to focus on it while still talking about all these other things. Okay, so definitely check out that July 12th one in the June report. You can search for Annie Botticelli, June 2018. For July report, we're going to talk about the second eclipse, which is July 27th, which is a total lunar eclipse at 4, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. And it's going to hit in your 5th house. That's why I'm talking about creativity. So what I mean about creativity is a very wide description. Creativity from the 5th house perspective is actual children, like the conception of a child, the pregnancy, the delivery, the stewardship, the child rearing. It's also creative babies. So the conception of an idea, carrying it through, birthing it, stewarding it. This also has to do with some very specific things like acting, directing, things that put your work out in front of a lot of people where you're leading. So it could be you teaching or leading a group, or it could be you doing something specific in the acting world. It could be singing, it could be athleticism, something where your center stage or the work that you're doing is a big deal, is this Leo energy. This is also romances, so that spark of new love and the fun, the romantic part of a relationship. The partnership part of a relationship is later on in the wheel. It's the 7th and the 8th house. But that fun, romantic aspect of a long-term relationship or a new relationship is housed in this 5th house. So you all will be experiencing this lunar eclipse energy in the 5th house. Lunar eclipses can bring endings to things, and sometimes they're abrupt and sometimes they're not welcome. Okay, so something could be removed from one of those areas that I just described. You could be a mom whose child is graduating and you're going to be an empty nester, or they're just moving along into a different phase of their development, something ending like that. Or it could be that something has come to fruition in a big way, like you're done with a project and now you have this blank, empty canvas to fill again. So something notable, dramatic endings, crisis, culmination, happy, fruition, something very powerful in this area that I just listed all of these things. Okay, but there are lots of other things going on. So we've got Jupiter waking up. Jupiter is the bringer of optimism and luck and expansion and growth. And when it goes retrograde, the gifts of Jupiter are more muted. They're harder to see, and he's working more undercover in a deep foundation of something he's trying to help expand. It's like when he's forward, he's moving you towards certain ends. But if your foundation isn't strong enough to withhold the type of expansion he wants to bring, he's got to go under and build stronger foundation so that when he goes direct, you can take the expansion. I always think about, when I think about Jupiter or even some of the other planets in retrograde, this energy, if you're watching a building being built, it seems like they're working under the ground forever. And you're like, oh my gosh, are they ever going to be done with this building? And the bigger the building, so like if it's a skyscraper or if it's a high building, the more foundation work they have to do. So the more that you're supposed to be expanding, the more foundation work you have to do to make sure that that building that you create is going to stay up. And then once you do the foundation work, it's like the house or the building gets built overnight. It's like, whoa, that happened really fast, right? So Jupiter's been working underneath the surface. But now, as at the beginning of July, he's waking up. So for early and some middle degree placements, this has been happening in your third house. For the rest of you, middle and late degree placements, this has been working in your second house. Now, any Virgo placement can experience the expansion in either of the places I'm about to describe, but it's more fine-tuned when it's broken down this way. Okay, so if you're in the first half or so of the sign, like your birthday's in the first half of the sign, or you're like between 0 and 15 or so degrees, you've been having Jupiter work on the sector of your communication. So this has to do with how you talk to people, how you get your essence out to people. It has to do with your communication devices. It has to do with your patterns of communication, and also your transportation and your mobility. So your physical mobility, your cars and other things that you transport yourself with. It also has to do with relatives like siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, things like that. So if you're trying to move forward in some area of life with how you express yourself and get yourself out into the world from your expression, Jupiter's trying to help you with that. And, you know, the first half of the sign is really having this energy being put forth. And so Jupiter, direct or in retrograde, will likely bring a lot of busyness, a lot of traveling around. You're doing here to do that, you're doing here to do that. And that's probably going to get to be even more when it goes direct. For the rest of you, Jupiter has been working on your finances. Okay, so your money is trying to be, your money story is trying to be rebuilt here. And again, setting up for future expansion. Some people see actual income increase when Jupiter is in their second house. Some people see the seeds being planted so that they're feeling like it's going to come because they see they're doing things and things are happening that are going to set them up for that. So many of you Virgos are really having your finances completely restructured. Your new foundation is being built. And as Jupiter goes direct in the beginning of July, you might start to see some major manifestations because Jupiter is not very slow to start working when it goes direct. You know, we notice like when Mercury goes direct, it's a little sleepy and it takes a little while to get things situated. But I noticed that when Jupiter goes direct, he's like, whoop, I'm here, I'm doing this again. You know, so as it gains strength, you'll see this more. But sometimes in that even first week that he wakes up, you might see money news come in. You might see something powerful that's going to set you up materially. Also, this can have to do with expanding your values, re-looking at how you use resources, being more sustainable, working more to manage the resources you have rather than just making more and more and more. Like trying to figure out your perfect amount of work and your perfect amount of money so that you're minimizing waste. That will be the focus for some of you. Now, if you are a person who's on the cusp of Leo and Virgo, and you're an early Virgo, and I'm thinking of one of my besties because she's definitely going to be affected by this. Your birthday's like August 22nd, August 23rd, 24th, 25th, or you've got like between 0 and 5 degrees for your rising sign, or any other Virgo placements. You're going to have Uranus trining your Virgo placements. And this is a really big deal. So Uranus moved into Taurus after 7 years of being in Aries. It moved in, unfortunately, with a bang, literally, as seismic activity dramatically kicked into high gear as soon as Uranus was in Taurus. And I talked about this before, that many Earth changes, unfortunately, are going to be activated by this Uranus placement. When this activator, this electric energy, this jostling energy gets into the Earth, things like seismic activity and other things caused by that, weather changes. The atmosphere is secondary to the Earth changes, but you can't really separate the Earth and the atmosphere, right? Everything is all related. So there are going to be lots of transitions that are occurring, but many positive things like increases in sustainability, solving of environmental problems, major breakthroughs with medicine and many other arenas, technology especially too. So we'll see all of that going on in general. But one of the things that it's doing specifically for you early Virgos, and this will be true for all Virgos at some point in the next 7 years. The later you are in degree or birthday, it's going to take longer to get to that point to make this beautiful aspect of a trine. But it's going to get there eventually. And when it does, it's going to be a very big deal. And it's going to be a long, kind of extended sweet spot. Okay, so for you early people in the sign, Uranus is trining your sun or moon or rising sign, whatever you're watching for. And that can bring things out of the blue that support whatever that placement is. So if it's your sun, it supports your creative expression. If it's your rising sign, it supports how you're bringing things out with how people see you in the world. If it's your moon, it's supporting your emotional security, and so forth, whatever type of placement you have there. But it's a very positive transit. And like I said, it's a longish term one because Uranus takes a lot of time to move around. So it's here in this early degree placement of Taurus now, but it's going to retrograde back into Aries, and then it's going to cross over here again. So it's kind of activating a beautiful, glorious expansion. So I'm very excited about that for you all, and the rest of you know that this is going to be happening for you in the time coming. Okay, so those are the things that are most on my mind for Virgo placements. If you'd like to see a written horoscope from me, then go to cozybysweetstarlight.com. I often talk about some of the things that I mention as far as some general transits for you to be aware of, but I also talk about some things different than I talk about in the videos. So my written horoscopes supplement the videos and give you more information. And they also have great reads for each sign for each month. If you're a traveler or if you're planning a trip for any of this time, then check out Astrology Kissed Travel Bliss, which is my astrology travel website. So I have travel astrology reports there so you can understand certain travel related astrological aspects to be aware of for your travels. And if you just love the idea of traveling, there's inspiration and gear and other blogs on there that you can check out. Okay, so we're going to talk now about the general transits, some more about Mars retrograde, what to do, what not to do, and some dates to note for this month in the general transit now. So the theme of the month for all signs for July 2018 is 2 eclipses equals major transformation. We've been talking about these eclipses. We've got 3 in this cycle. 2 of the eclipses in this cycle are in July. The 3rd one is in August. Whenever it's eclipse time, drastic changes, expected and unexpected new paths open up. Very often there's a complete surprise trajectory change that takes us in a completely different direction. And in some cases it brings to fruition things intended or planned. And sometimes it can shorten the time frame for something that we had originally thought would be further out, where we wake up one day and we had planned something for the future and all of a sudden it's here now. So this eclipse time is a very powerful time, and there are other things going on besides these eclipses. So we're going to talk about these astrological transits to note for July. Mars is still in retrograde. So Mars just turned officially into retrograde at the end of June. I have been talking about this for a long time because it's a very long transit, and there is a period of time before and after a retrograde transit of a personal planet like Mars that is very long, and you start to feel the energies well before the retrograde actually occurs. Okay, so we've been talking about this Mars retrograde energy. We started feeling it in May, it officially turned in June, and now in July we are fully into Mars retrograde. So this Mars retrograde is bringing permission to rest and to focus on relaxation and recreation. and what I like to call comfortable productivity. It's not that you can't get anything done in Mars retrograde. You absolutely can. You just have to follow the cues. It's not a time to be over ambitious, unless, of course, if you have Mars retrograde at birth, sometimes you can get more done during this transit than you do normally. But you would know it, because if you're trying to do something and it's working out and it's flowing really easily and you're not having roadblocks and you're not having frustrations, then that's totally fine. When you need to take the cue to rest and back off is when you're pushing and it's not working out the way that you wanted it to. So instead of just continuing to push, taking a step back is what is well indicated when Mars is in retrograde. So to second this notion, we have other astrological forces that are saying the same thing. Mercury is going to go into retrograde, and that's going to be on July 25th. And once that happens, it's going to further bring the past back into the present. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts early in July. So essentially the whole month is very much in this energy of things coming up from the past. So opportunities from the past, ideas from the past, projects from the past are all very much indicated to focus on at this time. At the same time as all of this energy is going on, we have the eclipses happening, and the eclipses may bring change and opportunities to act on, whether you want them or are ready for them or not, or maybe you are. But since there's so much energy pointing towards the past, a lot of times it will be things from the past finally coming to fruition now. So it's totally fine to say yes to the things that come to you. You just want to have an awareness of maybe not having all of the information, maybe the project being different or turning out different than you think. And the big key here is to be the spider. Okay, the eclipses and the retrogrades both tell us the same story, which is be the spider. So spiders weave their web and they wait for the food to come to them. So that's the kind of time that this July energy is really bringing. It's bringing this just chilling out and waiting and seeing what comes to you, and then you can work with what comes to you as it comes. Okay, so we've also got 5 trines this month. Trines are the most wonderful harmonious aspect in astrology. So I'm going to give you some dates to watch here. Now, the dates that I'm going to list, I'm going to go into some detail about the transits, but if you'd like more detail about the transits I'm talking about or transits that I'm not talking about that are also occurring, then definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com, sign up for my free email newsletter, and you'll receive monthly written reports a month before the relevant time. If you've already signed up for my newsletter and you're not receiving my reports, they're either going into spam, promotions, social, or events folders in your email. So look for them in there and then transfer them into your inbox so that you get my mailings. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the dates to note. The first one, actually, I'm going to just list these sweet spot dates. They're trines, they're beautiful aspects where things can gel together in a wonderful way, where there's just little sweet spots. So in the days around July 5th, July 8th, July 11th, July 13th and 14th, July 25th, we're having this beautiful aspect of trines on all of those days. So look out for little boosts at that time. The next date to note is July 12th, and that is this partial solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Cancer. So for everyone, every sign, this can bring new things involving home, family, houses, real estate, anything involving home. If you're an architect, it could involve your work. You know, anything that involves homes or housing or family or childhood or psychology, childhood psychology especially. All of these things are very high on the list of potential manifestations from this solar eclipse energy. So in the days around July 12th, you'll especially feel this eclipse energy, but remember that you could have gotten news about this manifestation that may come in as soon as May, because we've got like 6 to even sometimes 8 weeks ahead of time is when pieces of the story start coming in for these eclipses, okay? But that is a date to note. I always try to avoid doing anything important on the eclipse dates. You just kind of want to try to be available for whatever shows up. On July 27th, the second eclipse is a total lunar eclipse, and this one is at 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees of Aquarius. So here we'll see a lot of activity along the lines of friends, friendships, acquaintances, social media, groups, humanitarian efforts, internet-based projects, large organizations, anything having to do with innovation or technology. So look for those things. And again, this stuff could come in months before or months after. We're moving along a continuum with these eclipses, but that's on July 27th is when the actual event occurs. Okay, so some dates to look out for that could bring some challenges. And you'll notice that some of the dates I listed for the trines that have some sweet spots, there are also some challenging aspects on those dates. So you may feel them on the same day, something positive happening, something challenging happening, or you may feel one day it's a little pocket of a sweet spot and the next day is a little bit of a challenge. It's always hard to be black and white about how these energies are going to manifest, but I just want to list them so that you can be aware. On the 5th of July, on the 9th, on the 24th, on the 25th, and on the 26th and 27th, we've got challenging aspects on those dates. We have some squares, we have some oppositions, and these bring pressure to change, basically, or put pressure on viewpoints or ways things have been done. You know, they're basically, I describe them as the pressure. Well, the squares are the pressure that creates the diamond. So sometimes if we have a diamond that we want to create in our lives or a vision for this diamond, we have to do something about it. And if we're not doing something about it, or we're not sure what to do, this pressure comes in the form of this square. And it either shows us what we have to do or makes us fed up so that we actually take action. So you might see that energy show up this month from those squares. The oppositions bring overstimulation. Overstimulation is when there's a lot of busyness in opposing forces in our lives. So we've got an opposition in Leo and Aquarius on the 5th, so that could have to do with your own creativity versus the group, like your own flow versus the group flow. And then we've got another opposition on the 24th with Venus and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces. So this can be a lot of push and pull about the seen world and the unseen world, the logical world and the abstract world, and the intuitive world. You know, so you'll see some overstimulation with trying to balance being in multiple dimensions at once. Okay, so the things to note for this month: lots of sweet spots, some challenging points, and definitely massive opportunities for change, massive opportunities for things coming to fruition. The keynote here is to try to not plan too much unless you're very intuitively directed, or unless it comes to you to be planned for that time and that's out of your hands. And if something comes to you, then it's definitely fine to say yes to it. Just be aware that there may be changes that are continuing to happen over the rest of the retrogrades, and just to navigate as consciously as possible, leaving as much flexibility in your arrangements as possible. Mars retrograde is continuing this energy of relaxing, taking vacations, taking trips, doing nothing. And in that space of doing nothing, this is one of the most magical things that I love about retrograde. So people say, well, you can't do anything in retrogrades, and it's totally not true. It's just not a time to push. It's not a time to go against the tides. But what you can do, I always call it the shavasana of transits, because in that few minutes of shavasana at the end of a yoga practice, that integration, that quiet time is when the insights come, when the clarity comes, when the important pieces come, when the breakthroughs come. So this Mars retrograde, this month of July, is like this shavasana point where from that quiet space, pure genius can pop in and change everything. So these are the things that are most on my mind for the month of July. If you would love to learn astrology with me, check out my astrology apprenticeship program. I also have lots of other cool educational offerings on my site, both to change your vocation or just for your self-development and growth. I have my Astaria School of Practical Magic, which is a really fun way to work with the unseen realms and bring them into the seen realms. Definitely check out my hubby's offerings, B.R. Newman, at IamHelios.com, IamHelios.com. He's got lots of sound frequencies that help to balance out challenging transits and also help to empower you during the transits that we have going on. So definitely check his site out. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.